We're going to take a look at some application problems for percents and how to solve percent problems using equations. And so go ahead and take a look at these examples here. You can read those on your own to get an idea of what we're talking about here. And in these cases here, as you look at these from the lesson book, and then go into thinking about how we actually solve percent problems. The first thing is to think about is what we have here is, let me clean this up a little bit. What we have here is this idea is that percent times a whole equals some amount. When you take a percent of a whole, like in this 6.7% of 29.99, kind of looking at this problem situation here, what is the amount, right? 6% of 29, taking a piece of this. Another way to think about it is percent can be calculated by an amount divided by the whole, so that's a fraction. And so in this case, the first problem solved by taking 6.7% of this. You multiply. The key is turning that percent into a decimal, and that's what we practiced earlier. How about in a case like this? 6.7% of what amount is 450? And so notice in this case, we have a different situation here. 6% of what amount is 450? So we're taking a percent, right? 6.067 of something equals 450. In this case here, that's the whole we're looking for. And so that would be the whole amount. 450 is smaller than this 6,716 because 6.7% is not 100%. And so then looking at some of this here, what percent? So now we're solving for a percent. And in this case, you would see what we have here. What percent? X times 40 equals 17. You could also then say, if you're looking for the percent amount divided by the whole, and so you end up with those answers there. So these are just multiple ways to do it. I'm thinking about this one up here. You got to be careful, I think, of the word amount here. 6.7% of a whole really is 450. The amount is 450. So you got to be careful here. We're really looking for the whole in this case there. And then just looking at some more problems here. You have this, what percent? We're looking for a percent, so then you end up with this equation here. Again, you could end up using this type where you do x times something equals the amount and solve that equation, or you can write it as the fraction. So there are two ways to write those equations there. And so then you end up with this answer here, converting the decimal into a percent. 40% off when it's on sale, the bottom of your receipt. So this is the amount, and we're looking for the whole. And so that's, again, the whole is going to be bigger than the savings because it's less than 100%. It's 40%. Again, looking at this one here, 18%. Looking for the amount of the whole. And in order to solve that, again, you would cross multiply to solve that. 67.85 times 18% equals that amount. Again, you could use this equation or that equation to help you solve those problems there. As you look at the solutions for these problems. And so let's finish this up looking at part 2, and this leads into the discussion homework. What we're looking at here is this question of 108%. Someone always says you can't give more than 100%. You may have heard that phrase before. But looking at this, what does 108% mean? It means 8% more than the original value, or 8% more than 100%. So thinking about something like this situation, I like to do a little drawing of this, and you can see here's your 100%, 195,000. And then you could see 108% is going to be some value bigger than 195,500. And how do you solve that is you just write a ratio and proportion to kind of find that missing value. Take this number over this decimal number, x over 1.08, and then you solve for it and you end up with 108%. So that's a way to think about something more than 100%. We go back to this idea of percent change or relative difference. In this case, we're going to look at that perspective from a percent increase or decrease. So looking at, in order to answer these questions here, we're going to use this percent change formula, which is really relative difference, new value minus original divided by original, right? In terms of this case, you'll end up with the positive or negative numbers, which will represent a percent increase or decrease. So for example, on this situation here, we see the new value minus the original. You can see that we have a decrease. And so when you divide that by the original value, you end up with a 6.1% decrease. So you would solve problems using that formula there. There's another way to kind of change this formula into finding percent increases and decreases. When you're given what the percent increase and decrease is, notice this formula. It's your original value times 1 plus the percent increase to find the new value. So in a case like this one here, the median home price rose. That's increasing. So you can see where we get the 1.111 from. That comes from 1 plus the percent increase, and then you multiply that. And that will get you your value, 111% increase, or 11% increase would give you this value here. And so then your discussion is 2021, where you would apply these formulas to get your answers.